Caught me dancing.
You were the only one dancing.
I'm always the only one dancing. Welcome everybody to Self-Publishing Insiders. This is exciting this week because I've got three of my buddies here and colleagues here. I've got Mark Leslie the Fave. Welcome, Mark. I've got Nick Thacker. And I've got Dan Wood.
Hello, everybody.
See,
Hey,
Dan knows that this is going to go into an audio feed too, so he didn't just like wave like Nick and I did.
Right. So today we're here to talk about conferences. We're in the thick of conference season here at Drafted Digital. And just last week alone, we had, let's see, the four of us, plus Megan was at a conference herself. So there were five of us out and about around the country at three different events. So we're deep into it. So today I wanted to spend our time talking about conferences and why they're so important to authors and to the community, but not just to authors, they're also really important to all of us, to other service providers, because it gives us all a chance to reconnect, to network, and to learn about the latest key trends and issues that are shaping our industry. And so with that, I'm gonna pass the ball over to Mark, because you're at a conference that I don't think we have been to before. So I wanted to hear your perspective about what the conference was, where it was held, the type of author that participated.
For sure. So I was at a conference that's run by the South Dakota Humanities Council, and they run a annual conference called the South Dakota Festival of Books. And this was in Brookings, South Dakota. And I guess they alternate between two different cities every year. So I was in the Brookings one. And it was a really fascinating conference because I got such a sense of local history and authors who were writing about, Laura Ingalls Wilder, for example, was from that region. So there were several more scholarly writers who had written about her as an author, etc. And I know Megan was at another conference that was very similarly. This was more traditionally published authors, which is, I think, the way NINC used to be when I first started attending it years ago. And so one of the things that was really valuable to me, particularly as a Drafted Digital guy, I did a talk on the 7 Ps of publishing success, and it was very generically catered towards no matter where an author came from, whether they're traditionally published or self-published. Here are the traits that are the most common, including like professionalism and partnership, working with other authors, etc. And then I did office hours, 3 hours of back-to-back. People could just come in and ask
3 hours worth of office hours.
Yeah. Wow. And the idea was that if anyone had any questions about anything related to publishing, I'm your guy. I've been in the industry for 30 years. And so for a lot of people, I was so pleased that they had never heard of the awesome tools that exist at Drafted Digital. I mean, in one of the sessions I was at, not my session, my one-on-one, but another one I attended, there was an author there who had never heard of Goodreads. And so this is a really important reminder, I think, for us, as seasoned veterans in the industry who have engaged with lots of people, and I know you're going to talk about the kind of author who's at NINC, is I have to remember that there's lots of authors who have not yet benefited from the tools we have not yet benefited from learning that there's more than just the legacy traditional publishing method, that you can have it both ways, that you can still work with publishers and do your own stuff. And so that was a really fascinating thing for me. And so I was so pleased to be there. And I know Megan was representing Drafted Digital and had a very similar experience where people were like, oh, Drafted Digital, neat looking logo. What do you guys do? Well, we convert your draft to a digital file. Let me talk to you about that. So I think that's so valuable because there's so many authors we can continue to help because we have such a great free suite of tools. And so that was a good reminder for me. I know it may seem like challenging. It's like, oh, we don't really know much about ebooks, or we don't really understand distributing beyond Amazon. And so I always feel hopeful because I realize there's so many other writers that we can help. And that to me is just so critical in what we do when we connect with the author community.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I think we get in our little fishbowl here and in the indie community, we see a lot of the same people at different conferences, and it's so easy for us to conclude that, oh yeah, well, of course everybody knows who we are. But the reality is most people don't know who we are. It's also a valuable lesson to authors out there, even authors who are bestsellers and who, when they issue their next release every time, they hit those bestseller lists, but still most people haven't heard of them. Even readers who are in their who are fans of their particular genre. So it's always a matter of just spreading out that word, spreading it out, and spreading it out. Megan was at the Pacific Northwest Writers Association conference. It's one of the longest running conferences in the country. I'm probably going to get this wrong, but I think it's like 50 years plus. And they get a huge audience. There's a mix of traditional and indie authors, but like you said, Mark, it kind of leans indie. And they're one of the conferences that they get a lot of agents and editors attending, and so they have office hours. Or I don't know if the Pacific Northwest Writers Conference has like speed dating type of a program where the authors can go in and pitch their manuscripts to the agents. But it's a wonderful way to get in touch with agents and the editors if you want to go down the traditional publishing path. But I would recommend to indie authors that if you go to a conference like that and you have the opportunity to talk to agents and editors to pitch your manuscript, even if you are completely convinced and you've already decided that you want to go indie, talk to those agents and editors anyway, because that's going to be another way that you can educate yourself about how the industry works, about how that side of the industry, how they look for books and what appeals to them. And it's also going to help you hone your elevator pitch and your log line when you talk to readers and other people out there in the industry.
Did you see Megan's comment? I'm just going to pop it up really quickly.
No.
It is hitting 70 years next year. And they did have pitch sessions.
70 years. I knew I was going to get it wrong because every time I look at how long that conference has been around, I'm always really surprised. I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, can you imagine having a conference that's been that successful for that long?
Wow.
Is there anybody there that's been every year?
Maybe.
Really that would be really cool, like a lifetime conference attendee award.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of lifetime conference attendee awards, so yeah, my segues need a little bit of work, but we're just going to roll with that. So last week, Nick, Dan, and I were at the NINC conference. So NINC is an abbreviation of Novelists Inc. It's a wonderful organization that's been around for many, many, many years, targeted toward authors who are more experienced. They've been around for a lot longer. Their book sales have reached a certain threshold to be members of this group. And so this conference is kind of like, I want to say it's kind of on the leading edge of what's pushing the industry forward. So Nick or Dan, can you guys maybe talk a little bit more about what that conference is all about and your past experiences maybe with the conference and how it's changed over the years? And then we can kind of start talking about what it was like last week.
Yeah, it's been one of our favorite conferences for a very long time. I was trying to do the math. I think I've been going 8 or 9 years. Like, I'm not sure exactly how many. There was missed the one during the pandemic.
Yeah.
But it's changed quite a bit over the years. I would say those early years, it had a lot more traditional publishers there. It had agents, editors, and nowadays it's mostly indies. And I think what was the stat they told us? It was like 95% indie.
Yeah.
Nearly everyone in the organization now does some indie publishing. Some of them are also traditionally published. It's a great conference because it lets us talk to people who are all at a level where they are making their living mostly from their writing. Like a lot of conferences we go to, you don't know if you're talking to someone who's a New York Times bestseller or if you're talking to someone who's just an aspiring author. And so it lets us kind of gear our content higher and know that everything we're saying is something that they have the background to understand at that point. And so always love it. We love the, I guess, resort where it's based because it's been at the same place now for years, and that kind of it lends itself to running into people. And what I love most about NINC is just the networking, and I think that's what's important for authors is to take those opportunities to get to know industry people, to get to know other authors in their genre. You even get to, I think, learn new and interesting things from authors who are outside your genre. And things you can try within your genre that maybe no one else is doing at this moment. So, NINC's always very special to me.
Yeah, that's a great point. You wanted to add anything to that, Nick?
No, I mean, you pretty much covered it. Yeah, I was just going to kind of double down on the like, for me, I've been an author for over a decade, and I've been at Drafted Digital for half a decade, and there's never a time that it feels like, oh, I already know all this, or I already have all this. Like, I shouldn't be here. That NINC is such a conference that's inspirational in a lot of ways, because I know how to run ads, and I know how to build my author career and all that. And I'm not saying I know everything, but you kind of feel like you've heard some of the same stuff. And then I get there and I'm like, oh, I just want to sit next to this guy who knows how to do this and like listen to them talk. It's just constant all week. It's that. And you go to the tiki bar and you hang out and you end up, oh, I want to listen to this gal talk about how she does this thing. And you just don't realize that you've kind of needed that. So it's a perfect way. In my mind, it's almost like a way to cap the year. It's like kind of a celebration. You're on the beach, but you can't get away from an education while you're there. And that's what's cool about it.
I like that. I really like that. You can't get away from an education. And I think that's really important across the board for whether an author is just starting their career. Maybe they're a little apprehensive about going to their first conference because maybe they feel that, they're not ready yet. But then again, also for authors who are established or who are successful, and maybe they feel that, I'm good. I don't need to go to a conference. I would highly recommend, just based on what Nick said and Dan, that some of the content isn't just from going to these panel sessions or these workshops. A lot of the value that comes out of these conferences comes from those chats in the hallways, in the elevators. Sometimes you don't even realize, like, something will just come out of the blue where you'll be among a group of friends or a group that's new to you, and all of a sudden you've got a whole new cohort of really close friends to you. I want to ask you guys. So last year at NINC, and I think it was 20 books, and a couple other conferences as well, it was really quite clear that the two biggest trends of 2023 were direct sales and, of course, artificial intelligence. Do you guys all feel that it's kind of the same right now? Do you feel like one's waning and the other one's taking over? Any other topics that seem to pop to you guys this year?
I do
Well,
think that with direct sales, um, kind of that early excitement, people are realizing how hard it is to drive people to your own store.
Yep.
Uh, it's still like I think direct sales are great, but direct sales aren't going to. They're not going to replace having retailers like places like Amazon and
Yep.
Apple and Barnes and Noble spend a lot of money in acquiring readers and getting them there, and most people aren't going to move. Direct sales, I think, are perfect though for converting some of your super fans and having more control over your connection and relationship to them. But yeah, I think this year we definitely saw a little bit of direct sales fatigue because it was so popular. I think with AI, the conversations are getting a little bit more civil, where it's not all fear and it's not all
Hmm.
you have to accept. Uh, so now I think we're all beginning to figure out how to live in this new world because it's definitely different. It's definitely changed our industry. It's changing at just about every industry, and you can't really avoid it.
Yeah. Good point. I was in the I don't know if Nick or you, Dan, were in that in the AI session at NINC. It was a really well attended session. There was a panel talking about AI trends and issues, and I was sitting in the back row with my big tub of popcorn, waiting for the fireworks to occur. But it was very tame. It was extremely tame, and it was really interesting to sit back and hear how some of these best-selling authors are using their technology. Um, and what I learned was, like, hardly anybody's actually using it to write their books. They're using it as tools for other things, like research in particular, and how they prompted these tools to help them save them time was eye-opening to me.
Jim, can I elaborate on that a little bit? And
Please.
I think that's a significant difference. So you're in a room, and jokingly with a tub of popcorn, because you know that people can't even talk about this without calling each other names and getting out of hand and excited and all emotional.
Yep.
And I think that's a really important aspect of what we're talking about today. is conferences and in person, because usually when it's a faceless thing online, you just have at her and you hold no bars. You release the Kraken. When you're speaking to another human, you're reminded there's another human there, and you tend to be a little bit more compassionate, a little bit more empathetic. And I think that is so critical for us to have these discussions on. There are tools, like, again, I'm an old guy from the industry when the ebooks were going to kill the book industry because it's this new scary thing and it's going to be a horrible thing for the whole industry. And there's some publishers who still think that way because they think it's cannibalism of shipping dead trees around, as opposed to embracing it. But getting together at a place like NINC or any other conferences where you can actually have an engaged discussion, reasonable discussions, intelligent discussions, and actually listen to one another is how we grow and move on, right? In the industry. And that's part of that relationships, because you have a relationship with a real person who's in front of you. And I think it brings more humanity. And I think we need more humanity when we're talking about technology in particular.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's pretty easy to get all riled up behind the screen and voice your opinions, but when you see the other person who you know and respect because they're in the trenches along with you, writing books, trying to crank those books out and make a living too, it's eye-opening. It's definitely eye-opening. Mark, I wanted to ask you, but I'm glad you brought it up though too, your point. But I wanted to ask you, are the folks in South Dakota, they're on top of the trends? Like we're out here, we're on the front lines of pushing the industry forward. But do you feel like the folks out in South Dakota, like, are they in on the conversations about AI and direct sales? And
it wasn't as big a thing in that realm as well. There were not a lot of discussions about it. It felt more like a traditional conference that was mostly about working with traditional publishers and stuff like that. There were some authors there who had used Kindle Direct Publishing to make a book available, but then I was able to help them. I was like, well, is your book beyond Amazon? Is it available to other retailers? Is it available? That most of them had never heard of Kobo, right? Because it came from Canada, so it wasn't as well known. Have you ever, wanted to get your ebooks into libraries and stuff like that? And I think that, what I love about those is a lot of the discussions were about the craft. And a couple of my friends who came from Canada as well, both had properties. So IP was an important discussion. Rob Sawyer had a TV series Flash Forward on ABC based on one of his novels. Ado Van Belkom had Paramount Plus convert his YA books into Wolfpack. That was Jeff Davies on Paramount a few years ago. So they talked about that aspect of the IP, which I think is an important discussion. And just like authors are recognizing and still recognizing the power of direct sales. Now, it's not just the money, it's not just the margin, it's the direct relationship with your customer. But they're also discovering, oh yeah, I have this IP, and I'm gonna grant the rights to a publisher who's privileged to publish my stuff, as opposed to, please, sir, will you look at my manuscript? Right? Like, I think authors everywhere are beginning to recognize that they are what the industry is built upon, right? We're connecting authors with retailers and libraries, but ultimately the whole publishing industry is about connecting an author and a reader together. So those different
Bravo for stating that, Mark. Bravo for stating that.
It is. It's about those fundamental human connections, which again is just a great reminder for me.
Yeah, authors, you guys need to realize that people talk about who the face of publishing is, and some people might state, well, that's got to be like one of the big five. It's Random House, Penguin, Hachette, like one of the big five publishers. And some others might state, well, no, it's like Amazon or Barnes and Noble. But the publishers and the retailers, they're not the ones out there who are sparking these trends and helping the latest new genre catch fire and go viral. That's you. It's the authors. The authors are the ones who are the creators who are sparking these trends. The publishers and the retailers, they might exploit these trends, but they're not creating them. That's you and your ability to spark that excitement in your readers and have those things just go viral. Nick or Dan, were there any topics, not just at NINC this year, but at any conference, that kind of blew you away, where you're like, oh my gosh, I hadn't thought about that, or anything that has really stood out to you this year? Maybe not even a topic or a session, but was there anything that just made you sit up and go, hey, that's different or unique?
You know what surprised me, and I don't want to make this about AI,
Yeah.
but it involves AI, is the translations kind of
Mm-hmm.
becoming a new topic again, it seems, because we have tools now like Scribe Shadow or DeepL that can handle translating long form content at a much cheaper price than it would cost to do with a human translator. And again, not to be pro or anti AI at all. It's just it's interesting that I'm hearing that so much, that a lot of authors are now either dipping their toe in for the first time, or they're kind of revisiting it. I'm one of those who has had translations. I've had a publisher in Germany do some of mine, that I'm now getting the rights back. And I'm looking around going, wow, I mean, for such an affordable test, we can go test these new markets that we couldn't test before unless we had, a publisher or a bunch of money to invest. So I had a ton of conversations about that. I had a lot of conversations about using AI for translations, how to market them, how to advertise them. So that's really cool. It's an optimistic, it's like a whole new market, because it's the same
Yeah,
market,
that's really interesting.
but different language now, so it's pretty cool.
Cool. Thanks for that. How about you, Dan? Anything kind of pop out at you with you?
Just the rise of like all the new print options we have, and the custom like sprayed
Mm.
edges and all of the neat things authors are doing with that. Um, Kind of blows my mind. It's been good to see new players like Book Vault really offer some new opportunities. Players like Ingram offering new and additional things, and yeah, that's been a fun part of the year. And to see those and how popular they've been on social media, it's really cool.
That's a great point. There's been some awesome products that have been coming out from indie authors this year. Well, I'm like, whoa, I didn't even know you could do that. Pretty cool. Hey, I want to give a quick shout out to our colleague Megan Span, who's who's on the Gulf Coast. She's like, hey, Megan says, hey, I'm in the middle of hurricane weather, so my connection is questionable. But the PNWA conference was amazing. That's a Pacific Northwest Writers Association conference, was amazing. Um, Megan, we're glad that you were there to represent us, and we know that you did an awesome job. Keep safe out there. All right, go higher ground, higher ground. And I also want to bring up a quick question, you guys, from author Tom McAuliffe. Tom, we appreciate your question. Um, so Tom asks, sort of like the idea of doing a writers at sea sort of a thing. Are these conferences a business expense for taxes? He says, I would think so.
Do we have to say we're not lawyers or tax experts, but we'll offer our opinions as authors?
We can
As
offer a
an author,
disclaimer.
yeah, I mean, here in Canada, I can claim entertainment and meals at 50% as well. So it just depends on, I mean, if it's a conference registration fee, that is a business expense. Just because it happens to be on a cruise, oh well. Or on a beach in Florida, oh well, it is a business expense.
All right. Good answer. And a quick comment here from our other colleague, Lexi Green says, and this is a great comment, Lexi, thank you. Lexi says, before you really step into the author community, there are so many resources and major players you'd likely never hear about. That's true. And I can speak from experience that, so when I joined the Drafted Digital team in March of 2022, I had already been at Smashwords for over 10 years. And when I joined you guys, I was like, wait a second, there are all these different companies and partners that you had been working with that I hadn't even heard of yet. And now we're all buddies, but that is so true. So there are plenty of resources out there. You can go to the Drafted Digital's partner page to read about some of these companies. Who do you guys see as some of the up and comers out there? I saw there are folks from Booksprout in the audience today. Hey, Booksprout, Written Word Media, Plotter. Who else deserves a shout out there that have kind of been the up and comers over the last, I don't know, maybe 5 to 10 years that we see?
Yeah, shout out to Baventi. Jon Snow, my man Jon Snow. I think they're Australian. It's like event, author signing event kind of payment system platform. They weren't at the NINC conference, but I met them at 20 Books last year. They're doing some pretty cool stuff. So shout out to those guys for sure.
Good one.
Definitely. Yeah, I mentioned Book Vault earlier, but they've given a lot of new opportunities to authors that they hadn't had before, and I understand that they're very good at print on demand in the UK in particular. I would also say, we're about to see with Author Nation in November, it being kind of the replacement for the 20 Books Vegas. But it's been exciting to hear some of Joe Solari's plans,
Right.
and talk to people like Shell Honecker that are working with him on the scheduling. And it's some new speakers this year. And so I think that'll be something to watch and see how that all goes. What else do we see at these things? Yeah. We continue to see Plotter at more and more things, and a lot of people using their software. So that's very cool.
Speaking of someone you see at Novelist Inc., and I was just talking to an industry partner in a meeting earlier today, and they didn't really know much about BookFunnel as a tool, really important tool that authors use, not just for lead magnets and getting people on their newsletter and providing content, but direct sales. And I think, like Draft to Digital, Damon and the BookFunnel team have created so many tools that people forget that they have. Like, we have all these great tools, and people are like, oh yeah, I forgot you had that, or I didn't know you had that. And I think there's a lot of underuse of a great tool like that. So even though they've been around for a long time, they're constantly iterating and improving. They're almost like, cousins to us, in they're built from a very similar DNA.
I'm amazed they hadn't heard of them too, because if you go to any conference, even if Damon's speaking in another room, usually you can hear him.
Good point. Yeah, from the other state.
Yeah. You could be in your hotel room and still hear him.
We say that with love, Damon.
Much love.
Damon is the CEO of BookFunnel, and one heck of a karaoke singer, we might add.
That's right.
Yeah. Quick comment here from Beth. Hey, Beth. We appreciate you joining this week again. Beth says Netflix seems to be turning so many books into shows and movies. Absolutely, positively. That's, I don't want to say the majority, but a lot of books and movies a lot of movies and shows and series come from the minds of authors.
It's kind of wild now, because my wife and I will watch a show and we'll say, wow, this is really good. It's well written. So The Perfect Couple and then Bad Monkey are the two that most recently come to mind. And both of them were books. And it's almost uncanny how, if it was a book first, if it's gone through the process of being developmentally edited and all that, and then finally becomes a good product, it's like, oh, well, surprise, surprise. It makes good TV as well. Yeah.
Back in the day, as a side note here, so Smashwords is based in Los Gatos, California, so kind of on the outskirts of the Silicon Valley, but in the same town as Netflix. And we reached out to them. We're like, hey, you might want to take a look at some of these indie books. They're hitting these bestseller lists. It was crickets, man. But we'll try again. Let's see. We got about 15 minutes left. And before I forget, I wanted to do a quick round robin with you guys and just ask, what personally have you felt that you've gained from attending conferences throughout your careers? Let's start with, let's see. We're going to go clockwise. So, Mark, you would be the first one.
Well, for me, I gain as both an author, but also as an industry representative. A couple things. I mean, my relationship with Draft to Digital started at a conference. We had a working relationship when I was in the Kobo office, but I got to connect with Dan and Chris and other folks at the company and get to know them as real human beings. And so when challenges come up, when issues arise, you can reach out to these people. And the same thing in the author community. I have sold stories to editors who are soliciting for projects because I was on a panel with them at a conference. I have been able to, as an industry person, reach out when a partner says, hey, I need something really fast. Do you know somebody who writes this? I'm like, oh my God, yeah, I was just talking to someone yesterday at the conference about that. And it was a casual conversation and never would have found out about. And so I'm constantly getting stuff. I mean, one of the reasons it's a lot of work, getting on a plane, getting to a hotel and stuff like that, and being away from your family and whatever it is, and missing time, because the travel alone can be exhausting.
So glamorous.
Time zones. Yeah, it seems glamorous at first, but then it gets exhausting. But the reason I do it is the fringe benefits, the emotional resonance of connecting with other authors, with other people in the industry, is priceless at the end of the day. I cannot put a price on that. Those are so valuable to me.
Great point. How about you, Dan? What personally have you gained from going to conferences?
I think it was very important, especially early on as a business, that people met someone from our company and saw that we were trying to be part of the community. Over the years, it's really helped, I would say, business intelligence wise, just be able to talk to authors about where their pain points were, both with our software and then just in general. Like, it's really helped steer what we've developed, some of the different business options we've made have been based on the feedback we've gotten for authors on what they really want and what they need to run their business successfully. I've made many of my best friendships, and so that's been exciting, just to get to know so many different people across the industry and authors, to open opportunities like between us and other companies. We've talked for years with different ones, and there's a reason why we've got so many different integrations with people, and try to make things work really well with people like Randall Wood, on his what's the name of his software, Mark? It's
Scribe Count.
Yeah, Scribe Count.
Yeah.
Scribe Count. We've always done stuff with Damon from Book Funnel. So we just gained a lot of different stuff from networking and getting to know the people. When you think about it, our different partners are both our retail partners, other industry partners, and then the authors. And so just being able to connect to all those people and try to make as many opportunities as we can for authors, and giving indie authors as much access to readers as traditional authors have.
Excellent answer. How about you, Mr. Thacker?
Yeah, I mean, just thinking back to when I went to my very first ever author conference. It was 20 Books, Vegas. I think 2017 it would have been the very first one.
How did you feel walking into that first conference, if I may?
Terrified. Well, part of this is I mean, look, I had crippling anxiety, and I remember the whole week I was freaking out. I didn't know what I was doing. I had just gone full-time as an author, but not on purpose.
So you were going as an author, not as a...
I was going as an author. I didn't know anybody really. I had some friends, but I wasn't supposed to be a full-time author. I went full-time knowing that my wife was going to keep her job, and she quit like 10 minutes later. And so I was like, okay, well, now here we go, And so I remember going to this conference, and I sat down with Dan. I should say he sat down with me, and he was like, just breathe, man. It's going to be okay. Like, you're fine. And that was one of the first time I'd ever met him. And now, I mean, here we are. Look, let's do this. Dan, can you make a little heart? Best friend. He doesn't know how to. It's okay. It's
all right. Cut it out.
There we go. Yeah. All right, there we go.
Make it easy.
Yeah. Anyway, and I didn't come on to Draft Digital at that moment, of course, but I wouldn't have hired me either, But it was the beginning of a long and beautiful career with all of these guys here and the authors that I met. I mean, in a sense, it gave me everything, at the risk of sounding overly emotional about it. Like, it really was everything, because I had left my job, and all of a sudden I was in this ugly basement alone. I had no one to do life with or be around. And so that was kind of the first time I realized, hey, there's like hope out there. There's other people doing it too,
What a great answer, Nick. Thank you for that. And you touched upon one of the things I wanted to hit upon too. I mean, you all did. Like, one of the first things is friends. Like, you make friends at these conferences. You're going there expecting just to learn. Like, that's your number one goal, is to go to these conferences and get an education. But then you end up meeting friends that you have for years and years. And then those friendships expand, because they introduce you to their friends, and they introduce you to their friends, and so on and so on. Yeah. But another thing that, Nick, you just really hit upon was a challenge. The challenge of going to it and kind of taking yourself out of your comfort level. And for me, that has been really eye-opening, because I remember, I think it was back in probably 2010 2010. Wait, when did I join Smashwords? I joined Smashwords in 2011. So it's probably 2011, 2012. Mark Coker was doing all the speaking on behalf of Smashwords, and he was a busy guy, and so he asked me if I can help step in and do some of the speaking at these conferences. And literally, every cell in my body screamed, "Say no! Say no! Don't do it!" But I said yes, and so that pushed me to like really diving into the industry, because I had come from a high tech background out of here in Silicon Valley. So I had to learn this whole new industry and get up to speed as quickly as I possibly can. And every time I speak at a conference, it still gets those butterflies going. It's still a challenge. I'm never going to get over that. But what I've learned is every time I do it, it pushes me to ensure that what I'm delivering is providing value to my attendees. And every time I come back, it's like that confidence level just goes up another notch and another notch and another notch. So I don't know. It's just, I've learned that I've got to constantly stay out of my comfort zone. Wow. A couple comments I wanted to bring up here. This one from John popped up while you were speaking, Dan. Thanks for the comment, John. John says, "Hi, I met Dan in London at the self-publishing show. He won't remember me because there were 1,000 other people there, but it was a great event, and I hope we have something similar next year."
Hey, John, and I do think that James Blatch is going to be running something similar.
Cool.
It sounds like he might change the format up a little bit, but I think we're going to have some sort of event in London, and that'll be exciting. And we will definitely have someone there if that happens.
Right on. Opportunity says, "Hey, Mark, come to StokerCon Horror in June 2025.
And can I go to StokerCon in June 2025?
Where?
I think you have to now.
Yeah, you're obligated. Where is that conference? Does anybody know?
I think it moves around every year, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, does it? Okay. Okay. Yep. Okay. Let me bring up some more. Gosh, there's a lot of conferences coming in. Cool. Let me bring up this one from Beth. Beth says, "I'd like to go to a conference someday. I'm concerned because I have several chronic illnesses. Do conference planners make arrangements for people with disabilities?" This is a great question. Or would that be the host?
In general, I'd say most of them do, especially the bigger ones. They have someone dedicated to try to accommodate that. There are many that now have like a virtual version as well, where they either record the sessions live, or I think it's InkersCon, where they just have us separately do a presentation specifically for the digital audience. So those are some options out there, but there are many of them that try to accommodate as much as they can as far as disabilities.
And I would recommend, Beth, reach out to a conference you're thinking of going to and ask them those questions, because if they've thought about it, they'll have an answer, and they'll have like some options, some programming, some whatever that may be easier for you. Or they haven't thought about it, and you asking is going to help them think about it, because I bet you there are other authors like you that you asking that question is going to help. So you're going to be doing a favor to other authors out there, as well as the organizers.
Right. And some of the larger conferences, they'll work with the hotels to ensure that there are other accommodations for you as well, like carts to take you where you need to be on time, and that sort of thing. Okay. Scrolling.
I love when the comments are the chatty in the comments. It's like, because it's such a great community. Even though we're not together, we are together.
We are together. We're always together. A couple of other, so we were talking about other organizations that we've gotten to know over the years that just sort of pop up. And one I wanted to mention that I had forgotten about is Book Award Pro. Hannah Jacobson runs Book Awards Pro. And there are a lot of, if you're ever curious about how to submit your book for an award, how to do that, or you might be thinking, oh, it's really time consuming. So Hannah Jacobson is someone that we have met who runs Book Awards Pro, and they'll go out there and they'll search for all the different awards that may be applicable to your particular genre, and they'll let you know, and they'll even submit those applications on your behalf. It's a really cool idea. If you're curious about that, we interviewed Hannah on Self-Publishing Insiders, I think it was about a year ago already, but do a Google search on that, or just search through Drafted Digital's YouTube channel for that particular episode. Again, it's Hannah Jacobson and Book Award Pro. All right, gosh, we got about 5 minutes left. I'm going to kind of circle through the questions. We've done the round table. What else would you guys like to bring up here?
Well, I think we want to say forthcoming conferences. I think I saw a question or a comment that you will see several of us at Author Nation, which is the Joe Solari and company have replaced the previously existing one that was in the same bat, almost the same bat channel, but it's a new program, and we're looking forward to that. We love seeing new things emerge in the industry. We love working with our partners in that, and so we're definitely going to be there. So I guess obviously you'll see us at a variety of other conferences into the new year too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's kind of a dead season for us where after November, there's like January and February, we're actually like in December, January, and February, we're actually kind of home for a bit. And then things kick off again.
Recovering.
We do try to make it everywhere we can in the world because we work with authors worldwide. It's taken us to, Mark generally covers stuff in Canada now. We go to Australia, we go to the UK, we go to Europe, we go to New Zealand. Like we try to get and meet authors from all across the world.
Right. In February, I will be in Colorado Springs.
Hey, me too.
Right in Nick's neck of the wood there with superstars, and then Toronto, the Toronto Indie Author Conference that Dao Wang is running here in Canada, so close to where I live. Is nice. They're on for season 2 in May, so you can't keep me away from that one.
I'm actually going to be up in Denver starting tomorrow. I'm not staying overnight there, but there's a Rocky Mountain Fiction Writers. They call it the Colorado Gold Conference to confuse everybody. But it's a great conference. I was there last year. I met Dion from Ingram Spark and a few other industry guys.
Yeah,
it's a smaller conference, but it's definitely kind of come on its own as a great place because the smaller ones are cool. A lot more intimate, right? You can kind of meet everybody and get to talk to people. So I'll be up there a little bit tomorrow. I'm going just for fun, kind of, and my personal stuff sponsored, one of their little tote bag kind of things. So that'll be fun. And then Saturday, I'm there all day. I have 2 talks and a table. And like most things, I can't not talk about Draft to Digital. Like it's all the same thing in my world. So we'll definitely get some mention there, and we'll end up talking about the stuff I'm doing here, book covers and author email and all that as well. So that'll be fun. And then I'll be, and the next one for me is February. Superstar.
Excellent. I was going to tell you to send us some pictures, but on second thought, Nick, I've seen some of your pictures. Never mind.
What do you mean? What's wrong with my pictures? Am I old? Is my finger over the camera now? Do I do this all the time? Is that what it is?
That's all right. We'll save that for another episode later. Next week, Megan and I will be at the Georgia Romance Writers Moonlight and Magnolias Conference. Typically gets at least 200 authors. It's one of my favorite conferences. It's just this gathering of really, really passionate romance authors who are super, super duper like business savvy with their writing and their marketing. So I know I'm going to come back with a head full of knowledge from that one. I wanted to make sure that I read back Tom's comment here. Tom says, I keep hearing about that conference, 20 books. I guess it's in Las Vegas, but now it's undergone a rebranding. Will Draft to Digital be there this year? Also, is there a list of shows and fairs? So yes, Tom, we'll be there this year, but it's not 20 books anymore. It's called Author Nation. You might have heard us mention Author Nation a couple of times. So Author Nation is a bit of a departure from 20 books, but relatively the same. They want to keep it as like the largest gathering of indie authors in the nation. Programming will be similar. You'll see different tracks from craft to marketing and beyond. Anything else you guys want to mention about Author Nation? This is its first year.
I'm doing a talk on working with libraries and bookstores. That's nice. What I'll be doing there, as well as at the Draft to Digital table.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have on Monday, they have an industry day where you can come by and meet people, and we have a table there. So we'll be around, and then we'll be around during the conference, and Mark's talking.
Cool. So Mark will be there, Dan will be there, and Megan Spann will be there as well. Yeah. Megan is our full-time promotions person whose full-time job is to help you authors get more visibility in front of readers and more visibility in front of merchandising managers at the retailers and libraries. All right. We are at the end of our time. Any last thoughts, suggestions.
I was going to mention, like, the last part of his
yeah,
his comment was if there's a list of shows, we could probably put a list of shows that we're probably going to be at. Like, some of it's in flux over the year. But as far as a list of overall, like, all the shows, there's not, because there's so many. Like, that, it always blows my mind. We get invited to stuff that I've never even heard of that's been around for years. And so, but yeah, I think we'll probably get into like figuring out what our budget is and making our first kind of rough draft of where we plan on being next year. And we can definitely post a list of that somewhere.
Yeah, appreciate that comment, Tom. Any final thoughts, Mark or Nick?
No.
They're just shaking their heads. No, we've said it all. We've talked too much. All right, then. Well, I want to thank all of our viewers and thank you guys too for making the time today. We don't often do this where we all get together and have a roundtable to talk about any particular topic, so I appreciate it. For those of you out there who are watching and listening, we appreciate you so very, very much. If you could do us a favor and like these episodes, sharing them is so important when you comment. And then when you just subscribe to these, it helps us spread the word and attract new guests and topics for you. And then finally, if you can, I already said this part, didn't I? No, I didn't. Yes, I did. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. I'm a professional here.
It's okay. Sometimes I wasn't listening the first time you said it.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate you. Next, be sure to bookmark D2D Live, because when you bookmark D2D Live, on that page, you'll see what our next topic and who our next guest is going to be for subsequent weeks. And last, but certainly not least, if you are a new author, whether you are an aspiring author or maybe you are a traditionally published author who's kind of dipping your toes into the indie publishing waters, why not sign up today for a free Draft to Digital account by going to draft2digital.com. Once again, everybody, thanks again for your time. We will see you all here next week. For Mark, Nick, and Dan, and myself, thanks again. Guys, hang out in the green room. We've got some snacks back there, and I'll play a quick commercial for you. See you next week, everybody.
Bye.
Ebooks are great, but there's just something about having your words in print. Something you can hold in your hands, put on a shelf, sign for a reader. That's why we created D2D Print, a print-on-demand service that was built for you. We have free, beautiful templates to give your book a pro look, and we can even convert your ebook cover into a full wraparound cover for print. So many options for you and your books. And you can get started right now at draft2digital.com.